You're listening to the Telltale channel. If you like what I do and you want to see me continue to do it, don't forget to check out my Patreon. And take a look at my other YouTube channels too. You can find some ad-free, uncensored, complete versions of my videos on my website, owenmorgan.com. And while you're there, don't forget to sign up for my email list to get early access to everything I release. All links are in the description. In this podcast, there's an absolutely terrible song written by Trump extremists. I'm dubbing it the QAnon Quartet, though it's more than 4 people. Just rolls off the tongue. You have to hear these people. The QAnon Quartet has some famous people in it. Let's talk about some of the most notable, specifically Big Nick and Liz Crokin. These people are about as deep in the conspiracy rabbit hole as it gets. They're 5 minutes from wearing a tinfoil hat. Seriously, they seem to believe the government is trying to beam messages into our heads using high-frequency sound waves. There was a remedy for that back in the day. Tinfoil hats, for real. Mike Lindell showed up at a conference recently and told his story of coming out of addiction and making something of himself. Except it conflicts with other stories he's told about it. And I don't mean little inconsistencies, I mean glaring, obvious problems with the story. The dude went from addiction to nearly being a billionaire. His story's incredible enough as it is. Why does he have to lie about it? It's almost like he can't help himself. We also take voicemails. If you want to leave a voicemail, the number is 1-800-701-8573. You can also leave a message for me in text form by going to my website, owenmorgan.com, clicking Contact Me in the menu. Voicemail is still the best way to get a hold of me, 1-800-701-8573. Keep it between 30 seconds and a minute, and I'm just about guaranteed to hear it.
Guess what? Just got a couple of my Amish buddies shunned today by the Amish church. Over the years, there's been quite a few Amish men that reached out and wanted phones, so whenever they request to have a phone, I'll do everything I can to try to get them a phone. Not always can I do so, but in some circumstances, I have been able to get them a phone. Now, 3 of them replied back to me today and said, hey, I'm going to have to lay low for a while. I just got shunned. And I said, how'd that happen? They said, hey, that emergency alert that went off? Yeah, we had our phones on vibrate, and it still went off.
So, if you don't remember this, not too long ago, there's like an emergency alert system test, and the test system was capable of overriding your volume settings. That's what this guy is talking about right now. Apparently, he gets cell phones for Amish people, and the Amish had their phones on, and that emergency alert overrode the system. That's actually really sad. Really, really sad. I got an email about it. I just want to read it real quick because this is a TYT segment, and I want to watch the rest of the TYT segment, but let's read the email real quick. Hi, Owen. Have you seen, this is from Eli. Have you seen TYT's coverage of the Amish people that were shunned after their phones were discovered when the alert test made everyone's phone make some pretty loud noises? I know how you feel about TYT. I'm not a big fan of TYT. I don't agree with all their commentary, but I watch them a lot. Yeah, that's fine. I mean, you know, it's a network. They've got a lot of people involved in their system. So some of their stuff's good, some of it's not so good. It's hit or miss, you know. I'm kind of iffy on TYT generally. Anyway, they were laughing at the people who were shunned like it was a big joke. I don't know what's so funny about people losing their community, their partners, kids, parents, etc. Thanks for what you do. I love your stuff. Yeah, I appreciate the email. It's very interesting. I wanted to watch the rest of this because this is really telling. It kind of reveals the general population's sentiment on what shunning is. I was a Jehovah's Witness. I am actively being shunned by my family right now. I haven't talked to my mom in I haven't had a relationship with her in 20 years. I think we've said a couple of words to each other over that time generally, but it has affected me very deeply. Now, when I was a Jehovah's Witness, when I was in it, I looked at Amish and thought, isn't it odd that they shun? What a weird thing. I wonder what that's like. Not even realizing that my own religion did that. So listen to the rest of this clip where this guy describes it and how TYT reacts.
Alert that went off? Yeah, we had our phones on vibrate, and it still went off.
I'm not sure why that guy was laughing about it.
I will say, when I heard about the emergency alert, my first thought was, oh, prisoners who have phones, I know the prison guards are gonna use this as an opportunity to try to suss out those phones. I hope they all turn them off. Never did I consider the implications for the Amish. And there's one of those people who was shunned. Their story is just so much crazier than even that, because when the alert went off, the elders of their Amish community were at his house to.
I'm not really sure why she's laughing about this. I'm going as charitable as humanly possible and assuming that she was like me before I understood this. Shunning is life-ending. People actually check out because of what happens, and it is so much more common than people realize. It's almost quaint that she doesn't really understand how serious it is. Again, I'm not going to blame her for this because I kind of viewed it the same way. I didn't realize how pervasive this was, how destructive to people's lives it is, and how it's used as a weapon against countless people. So we'll be as charitable as humanly possible and assume she's just unaware.
Question him about something else they wanted to shun him for. Take a look.
The one guy said the elders were coming in his driveway and they were there to speak with him about something that they heard about him, that he might have to get shunned, you know. They got to check up on it to see if it's true. Right when that was going on, the alert went off and he was in his pocket. Now he's getting shunned for both, whatever they were after to shun him, and also the cell phone.
I'm not really sure why this guy is laughing. This is terrible. This is really deeply devastating, honestly.
He got double shunned. Oh, that poor guy. And if you're like me and you had no idea.
He got double shunned, that poor guy. They're kind of saying it like it's kind of thing where like, oh my God, his ice cream scoop fell on the floor. Oh, that poor guy. Man, he just spent like $3 on that ice cream cone and he really wanted to eat it. And now it's gone. That's not really what happened at all. And it's kind of sad that this is a general sentiment. Again, I'm not blaming her. I'm blaming general society, or honestly, I'm blaming myself for not getting the message out to more people that how destructive shunning is, you know? We really need to make people in our lives understand how deeply damaging this is.
And you had no idea. You had a vague idea of what shunning meant, but you didn't actually understand how it worked in practice.
Really quaint.
I did some, deep research on a website called Amishpedia to figure it out for you. It says Amish shunning, known as Meidung, is a practice in which an individual is completely cut off from social, economic, and religious relationships with other community members. It continues on. The shunned individual is often considered dead to the community and is avoided at all costs. The duration of the shunning varies. It can last for years or even a lifetime. If the shunned person repents, they are accepted back into the community. And Cenk,
it's kind of tacky to laugh here, right? Again, I'm not blaming her. I feel like she should probably do a little bit more heavy research before doing such a serious topic. It feels kind of like laughing about somebody getting the death sentence. I mean, they're very similar, right?
I've heard so much about right-wingers, saying that we were gonna become zombies because of the test on our phones. But like I said earlier, I'd never considered how this might impact Amish people who aren't quite ready to leave their communities behind, but still.
Yeah, so the emergency test broadcast thing went to everybody's phone at a certain time. I think mine was 2:20 p.m. And Qanonners believed that that was the signal they were sending out. Like, this entire time, QAnon has been claiming that there's graphene oxide in the vaccine, and anybody that gets a vaccine can have that graphene oxide activated by 5G in their cell phones. And all they have to do is activate the 5G, and, a million people just gone like that. They've been saying that for years. This one is from 2021, early August 2021. This is Pete Santilli and former Congress member, or maybe she's just a candidate for Congress, Deanna Lorraine. She's also an InfoWars correspondent, if you will, like an InfoWars talking head or whatever. Check this out.
The people now that are learning more about the adverse impact of getting vaccinated,
there's no adverse impact.
They're having regrets about it because
nobody is having regrets about getting vaccinated.
We're hearing about this shedding.
Nobody is hearing about shedding. It's not happening. You live in a fantasy land.
That's going on, and
the vaccine shedding.
The shedding, and also the activation of the graphene oxide. It's
There is no graphene oxide in the vaccine.
actually sitting there dormant, but if it gets energized by something like 5G, it actually kills all the cells around it.
I've had 5G on my phone for 2 years now, and I've gotten all 4 of my vaccines or whatever, however many.
That is so crazy to me. I mean, can you imagine if they just like activate and said, "Oh, all right, 1 million people are going to be gone."
That's the thing that's crazy to this dude. Anyways, so that was, that never happened, of course. That never came to fruition. But Qanonners, like these two people right here, seemed to believe that this emergency test that was going through was going to be the signal that was going to turn them into like zombies or kill them or whatever it is. Activate that graphene oxide that isn't even in the vaccine. Just absurd.
He's behind, but still want to feel connected to the world.
Well, first I want to say.
So I did listen to this entire segment, talking to the emailer. For what it's worth, Cenk comes back and, gives a really good response here.
Well, first I want to say my favorite thing in the world now is an Amish TikToker. Okay.
Yeah, that's kind of an odd thing, right?
Hey, now granted, he's former Amish. That's why you can see he began to grow in the mustache, but hadn't quite gotten there. Anyways, look, the idea of shunning is super interesting to me. Everything the Amish do are super interesting. They also do something called Rumspringa, when after kids get to a point where they're about to become an adult, they get 1 year off from being Amish. And they can go nuts. They could do coke, they could have a technology, they could have a fridge, and then they come back. But
they don't always do that, but that's true. Sometimes they do, and it's not always an easy thing to plan or orchestrate. I mean, you have no money, you have no nothing. How are you going to get out of the town, let alone rent an apartment and have a job and everything? It's going to be a hard uphill battle. And it's going to be completely unfamiliar to you. It's not going to be fun at all. It's basically like being shunned for a year. That's what happens. You're shunned for a year, effectively. It's not really good. It's not a good way to introduce them to any of that stuff.
Hey, if you violate the rules after that, my dung, which is also hilarious. Come on. Anyways, but what's interesting to me is it's also a little bit of a telling story about the bubbles that we live in. We talk about the Trump, and earlier in the show, we talked about, is it a cult, is it not? I talk about the mainstream media and how they set up a cult in some ways of the politicians are wonderful and awesome and etc. But the Amish there, they really, really believe that we shouldn't do any technology, we should live in the 17 or 1800 times and get frozen in time, and if anyone violates anything like this, shun them. And shunning is no joke because humans.
See, now Cenk is coming back and setting the record straight in a kind way. I appreciate that. Like, I don't like Cenk. I think he's like off the rails on some things. Anna also, I think, completely off the rails on some things. And I think they're both populists and they breed far-right extremists. I don't know how this keeps happening. Jimmy Dore came out of the Young Turks. And Dave Rubin came out of TYT. Like, I don't get it. They're always on a weird side of every issue. Anyway, neither here nor there. He is on the right side of this issue, luckily. And I appreciate that he's saying it in a kind way to her and not shutting her down and chastising her and treating her like garbage. I wouldn't be a fan of that. I'm glad that he's coming in with a light touch and saying it's no joke.
Shun them. And shunning is no joke because humans are social animals. And when you reject them from the community, like for a human being, almost nothing hurts worse. So it sounds funny, but it has a severe consequence for the people who get shunned. And remember, they don't know that they live in this. I mean, they have some sense that they are outsiders and different from everyone else, but they don't know that the rest of us think that they're like kind of crazy and they could bust out any time. But remember, they're not crazy, they're not stupid, they're normal human beings who just grew up in that bubble. And that's why I think that story is so interesting.
I really appreciate everything that he said there. That was absolutely spot on. Again, I don't like the way that Cenk and Anna and the other people on TYT, the network, process things and talk about things. I don't like it. I think it's terrible. But overall, he did a phenomenally good job on this specific segment right here. And again, he didn't treat her like an idiot. He didn't chastise her or make her feel bad or lower or anything. He just tried to set the record straight so that she understood. There's a power imbalance between the two of them because she's an employee and he is the employer, and they're in front of a big audience. It would have been a completely inappropriate place for Cenk to have, dressed her down, for lack of a better term, on this issue. I think he did the right thing. Kind of joke around a little bit and then set her straight.
I know very little about Amish culture and the idea of technology. I know it's it was birthed out of, like most or a lot of religion, out of a split between two other denominations in 16th Switzerland. I just am. I want to know the definition. Who defined technology? Like what's acceptable and what's not acceptable as.
Well, I can answer that. I believe it was a split from the Protestant church. The Protestant church and the Anabaptists split off from each other. Anabaptists moved to the Germanic region, Russia, Germanic region, and then the Anabaptists split further into Mennonites and Amish, and then the Amish fractured into a million pieces. Basically, it depends on the Amish community that you're a part of, or even the Mennonite community you're a part of. A lot of Mennonites don't like using much technology either. They're a little bit less serious about technology use than the Amish, but it largely depends on the schism, or on the sect. That's SECT, sect. It depends on the sect that they're a part of, where their line is, so.
Pertains to usable technology, because the fact that someone is using a wagon, someone else may consider that technology.
Oh, it is. Yes, it's technology for sure. It's just they drew a line here because they believe that this is what God wanted them to do or whatever.
I think the idea that you can lose your entire family and also livelihood for an alert message, it to me is scary beyond scary. The idea that you are left out here alone, never being able to be a part of your community anymore because an alert went off is scary. I just don't understand.
Yeah, it actually causes a form of PTSD called RTS, religious trauma syndrome. And it's not just, trauma, I got trauma from being in religion. That's not what it is. Or, I don't like religion anymore. It's not like that. I mean, you start jumping at loud pops, you start having nightmares, the whole 9 yards, the same symptoms that anybody with PTSD has. It is a form of PTSD. It's something that I have, actually. And a lot of people probably have and don't even realize.
And I can't wrap my head around it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and I'll say one more thing. First of all, don't be sorry. You can offend the Amish all you like. They're not watching. And if they are, they should be shunned. Okay, I'm kidding. You should not be shunned. Okay, I have nothing love for you, but I want everyone to bust out of their bubbles. But the point I was going to make is, if your community banishes you, please go find another community, because
100%.
You're not the problem, they're the problem. Like banishing people based on violations of etiquette, not even a crime, not even hurting someone else, but on some BS etiquette left over from hundreds of years ago. There's communities that would love to have you and that are loving. You don't have to stay in that exact community.
Absolutely agreed on that. I can't endorse that position enough. And what's more, sadly, I actually looked for ex-Amish and ex-Mennonite YouTubers. I did find an ex-Mennonite, but she didn't really talk about Mennonite stuff very often. It was only a couple of videos on her channel on YouTube. And I found one ex-Amish, and he only posted like 2 videos total with like 130 views between them. And then he just never posted again. So they're just, it's hard to bust out of that community. Very hard. And if you do bust out of the community, you've never even seen a computer in your life, let alone used one. What are the chances you're going to figure out how to upload YouTube videos and do editing and all of that other stuff? It's just sad, man. Anyway, thank you for the email, Eli. I appreciate that. It was an interesting subject to touch on. And yeah, I'm not a fan of TYT, but Cenk was on point on this one. And I'm just going to chalk up all the other stuff to a lack of understanding or knowledge. Try to be charitable.
Owen, my name is Joseph. I'm from Long Island, and I've been a fan of your channel for a while, before you even moved to New York. I was calling because I read a recent episode where a caller was remarking about how you thought that you didn't say it, but you thought that Jesus was a gay man, and you asked.
Well, let me just clarify. I made a joke about the fact that Jesus was never married. It doesn't, make note of him being with any women at all, really, in the Bible. But he's always being followed around by, 12 other dudes. And I just, kind of joking. It's a flippant remark, yeah. I got a voicemail from somebody who was upset about that, said it was insulting to imply that he was gay. My response is, why is it offensive to imply that he's gay? There is speculation that he had a relationship with Mary Magdalene. There are apocryphal books where it basically spells that out for us. So if you're not offended by that, why would you be offended by the possibility that he was with Peter instead or something? That was the previous voicemail. That's the voicemail that this caller is referencing here. Just give you a little context.
Gay man, and you asked the question, what would be the problem if he was a gay man? The problem would be is that as a Christian, he didn't come here to get married. He didn't come here to have children. He came here to save us from our sins. And I understand that you're an atheist now.
I can understand that. Oh, we'll get to the rest of voicemail in a second. I can get that. I understand your position on that. The point is that he was not here to marry people. He was not here to have children or whatever. But Jesus was not an only child. He had siblings. He had an entire life. If you read some of the other apocryphal books that arguably belong in the Bible, but were rejected by, a council hundreds of years ago or thousands or whenever it was, for one reason or another. If you accepted those books, then you would have a much clearer idea of what Jesus' life as a child was. He lived a full, normal life by and large. As a matter of fact, there's one apocryphal gospel that, again, arguably belongs in the Bible, that describes Jesus having a serious temper and Joseph and Mary doing everything they could to keep him inside and away from people, because anybody that crossed him, any bullies, anyone that he didn't like, anyone that even looked at him wrong, died. So I don't know. There's a lot to Jesus there's a lot more to Jesus in the stories than simply he was a guy that got baptized by John the Baptist and then got strung up on the cross for our sins. There's a lot more to his story than that. A lot more. He had a life and siblings and friends and family and followers, and he affected the lives of everybody around him in some unique way. As a matter of fact, it could be argued that maybe it was his responsibility to get married and have children, actually, to pass on, God's line or whatever. Anyways, I don't know. I mean, if Jesus isn't allowed to get married, then why is anyone else allowed to get married? He was serving God. Aren't we supposed to be serving God? At any rate, that's not the point that the other caller was making. I got the impression the other caller was kind of unhappy about the implication that he was gay. Just plain and simple. Had nothing to do with whether or not he should have been married. It was really, for that caller, I'm assuming, correct me if I'm wrong, caller, I'm assuming that originally the original caller was upset by the implication that he was gay.
I understand that you're an atheist now, but there is a God. There's no doubt about that. I mean, I know that you want, proof. You want to be able to know beyond a shadow of a doubt. But
No, I don't need to know beyond a shadow of a doubt. I need any evidence. I will take almost anything. Right now, the world looks exactly as it would look if there were no God. I need some, anything. I'm grasping at straws here. I want this to be true. Please. I want to know that there's something out there, after I close my eyes for the final time. I don't want to die and that be it. I want there to be something beyond that. I just cannot believe it. I simply can't, because there is no evidence, like none. Now, you want to base it off of faith. That's perfectly okay. You can base it off of faith. That's what everybody does. That's fine with me. I just can't do it off of faith. I need just a little bit more than that. Sorry, I keep interrupting the voicemail. I'll let it play.
There's no doubt about that. I mean, I know that you want, proof. You want to be able to know beyond a shadow of a doubt, but there's very few things in life where we know beyond a shadow of a doubt. The only problem I have with your show is that you kind of skirt the issue about the religious aspect of it, and that's important to me. Even though I question things from time to time, I think in the end, there's a lot of people in your audience that do believe that God exists and that you.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'm sorry. I said I wasn't going to interrupt again. I'm sorry. Yeah, there are a lot of listeners in my audience that are Christian, and that's 100% fine with me. In fact, I appreciate that they're here, because ultimately my goal is to shut down Christian extremism. I want to shut down Christian nationalism and QAnon and cults of various types. I have no interest in putting an end to Christianity or whatever. That's like not on my list of goals. So
there's a lot of people in your audience that do believe that God exists and that Jesus Christ died for our sins. Thank you so much. I love the episode where you had your daughter on, and keep up the good work. I've learned a lot by listening to your channel. Have a good day.
Yeah, I appreciate the phone call. It was very interesting. Like I said, I think that your position on it is a little bit different than the other callers. Again, the other caller was not here to speak for themselves, so we can only assume. But yeah, an interesting voicemail, interesting subject, interesting perspective on it. I appreciate that. Cootmaster, what about surviving the near plane crash? Yeah, I was in a plane crash, or a near plane crash, an emergency landing. I was in an emergency landing on an airplane last year, and it was a deeply disturbing situation. But the thing is, belief in an afterlife or in God is not something you choose. The Christians in the audience are not choosing every day to believe that God is real. You're not choosing that. That's something that's a conclusion you reached. It's a conclusion I reached, that the God of the Bible, the God of Trump extremists, the God of Qanonners, isn't real. It's a conclusion I reached. And honestly, I can't think of a single thing that would convince me that QAnonners' God is real. The God that is supposed to be all-powerful, but is not stepping in to stop anything, who is relying on old Joe over there with his AR-15 to resolve the world's problems. I don't know what I don't know what kind of a bizarre warped view of God they have, but I can just about guarantee it's not real. I'm literally betting my life on the idea that God is not real. I think at best, the absolute most charitable you could say is God created everything and then walked away. That was it. He was done with it beyond that point. And all of the denominations out there, all of the writings and philosophical positions and conclusions that people have reached is all bullshit. It was based on information that they read out of the text that wasn't there in the first place. And a lot of the original text from the Bible is made up nonsense. And we know that for a fact. The book of John has made up stories in it, a bunch of them. That story about Jesus saying he who is without sin should cast the first stone, that's fake. That story doesn't belong in the Bible. It was added after the fact. The last chapter of the book of Mark is fake. Doesn't belong there. The book of Revelation is not really a part of the Bible. It shouldn't be. So anyways, that's my position on it. I would love to believe in a God. I simply don't. Simply can't.
Hi, Owen. My name's Hunter. I'm from Indiana. And I know this happened a while ago, but I wanted to get your opinion on when South Park got censored when they wanted to depict the Islamic prophet Muhammad, and whether you agree or disagree with Comedy Central censoring him out of fears of Islamic terrorist threats. So if you could answer this sometime, I would greatly appreciate it. Hope you have a great day. Bye.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I'll go ahead and answer it. I don't talk about Islam very often. Almost never. And it's not because, like, I don't think it needs to be criticized. It absolutely does. It's a lot of people on the left who are also atheists talk about Islamophobia a lot, and there's kind of a stereotype out there where, like, people on the left who talk about Islam are always positive about it. I'm not. I don't think Islam is good. I would like to see Islam as an idea erased from earth, and I want all of the Muslims to come to their senses and realize what this has driven them to do and how deeply damaging it's been to them and their lives, their families' lives, and their society and everything. Since that's not happening, I don't believe that we should allow their faulty conclusions and terrorism and extremism to affect what we do. So it was Comedy Central's decision to censor Muhammad. I don't really have a huge problem with that if that's what they chose to do. I mean, it's clever in its own way. Having a big censor bar like that, it's making its own point, right? This is something that we can't show. Personally, honestly, I think I would have censored it simply because it's making a point. But I don't think that they should be forced to. I think they should have been allowed to show it if they wanted. That's just me. Because there's this rule about not depicting Muhammad in any imagery that's, like, super against the rules in Islam. It's, like, super offensive to them. But, yeah, I'm sorry. We got to live in peace, and we got to get along. We all live in the same world, and we all have different cultures, and we got to tolerate the fact that we're different from each other. So, anyway, that's my position. Thank you for the call. Next up, there's an absolutely terrible song written by Trump extremists. I'm dubbing it the QAnon Quartet, though it's more than 4 people. Just rolls off the tongue. You have to hear these people. We'll be right back. Don't forget to check out my Patreon, and check out my website and email list for early access to uncensored, ad-free, complete videos. All links are in the description.
Only He will bring us closer when we fall to our knees.
And He'll lift us from the ground so that everyone can see that we never lost our freedom. It's in His glory.
This is bad, dude. This is a QAnon song that was put together by just a bunch of QAnoners, like a ton of them. Primarily, I think Jeremy Levy is his name, or Jimmy Levy. He was on American Idol, and he got pretty far, actually. And he turned out to just be like this MAGA rapper. Dude, I'm telling you, when I get older, I'm gonna have a permanent brow furrow like this. Permanent brow furrow from all the crazy that I see day in and day out. He produced this brand new song and included every major QAnon figure in it. So I want to start out by going through the song. I want to listen to the whole thing beginning to end, talk about what's in it and what they're talking about and what any of it means. And we're going to do breakdowns of some of the more famous people that did guest appearances in here, okay? So this guy that we're listening to right here,
In His glory.
this guy is Big Nick. He's a TikToker with somewhere around 2.3 million subbies, I think. Very famous and absolutely terrible. He is insane. If you want to hear about him, stick around. I'll be covering him in the next video. But for now, let's talk about the song and the heavy lifting whatever computer had to do to auto-tune the hell out of this. It's like Michael Flynn here. It's like he's stating what he wanted to say, just stating it. And auto-tune is working overtime, just frying that CPU, trying to turn it into something that plausibly sounds like a singing voice.
Only He will bring us closer when we fall to our knees.
He's seriously just stating it, right? Is this not just him stating it? He's in a song, man. To be fair, actually, like, when we get into the song a little bit, you'll see the whole group. There are some people in here that are really, really QAnon famous and didn't sing a single line. Like this guy over here, Grant Stinchfield, I think is his name, in the left, right next to Big Nick. He never said a word in the song, and that's probably his best bet. That was a wise decision. If you don't have any formal musical training or singing voice or whatever, if you don't know how to do it, don't try without training, okay? In a professional environment where you know millions of people are going to be listening, just don't. I don't care if you have auto-tune. Matter of fact, that makes it worse. Anyway, let's listen to the song here. We'll skip to the beginning. Amidst a firmament consumed by the oppressive grip of government overreach and tyrannical control, a man by the name of Jimmy Levy emerged. That's a dude that went through American Idol, almost went to the end. Poised to make a difference. Fueled by the Holy Spirit, he set out to bring together a group of gifted individuals. United by a common thread, they poured their souls into recording the timeless and evocative hymn of freedom. Hymn. A hymn of freedom. It's a religious song, is how they're framing it. And it's full of Qanonners. All right, so let's listen to it, shall we?
You can take all our money, but you can't have our soul. You can burn down our buildings, and we'll still find a home.
He's got a beautiful singing voice, really. He knows how to sing for real. Listen to what he does here.
Buildings, and we'll still find a home.
You hear that little, oh, like that little trilling that he did? Vibrato is what it's called. A lot of the time people try to cover up their poor singing with vibrato. That is not what he was doing. He was using it appropriately. And also, what is wrong with this beard? What is happening with this? There's something deeply wrong with this beard. I don't know what it is. I feel like it's satanic. I feel like I want to say the beard is satanic. Should I go that far? Oh, yeah, and about that they'll burn down our buildings thing.
You can burn down our buildings.
Give me a break, man. That didn't happen, okay? None of that happened. I live in New York City. There's this whole thing where QAnonners and the right in general, honestly, just the right, claim that Black Lives Matter burned down New York City, burned down Portland and Seattle, Washington, and all these other places. In Spokane, Washington. I was told recently by a voicemail caller that I pronounced it wrong when I said Spokane. I apologize for that one. Spokane, Washington. They're all standing, guys. They weren't burned to the ground. Matter of fact, there were a couple of buildings that were burned down at various points. There were a couple of fires lit. That's true. But would it surprise you to find that many of the fires that were lit, or at least some of the fires that were lit were actually lit by right-wing neo-Nazi provocateurs, according to Reuters News and AP News? The far right wants to turn this whole they can burn down our buildings thing into like this point of persecution. But first of all, the people who live in these cities realize that it's not dangerous at all, and it's not being burned to the ground. And second, the people singing this probably don't live in those cities, so they have no idea if this is true or not. They're just assuming it is.
And we'll still find a home.
Really good singer.
We will all stick together, and we'll never surrender. We won't give up our freedom.
It's got almost like a raspy sound to it, you know? It's really, really good. And he's absolutely on key. Now, that may be because of auto-tune. We know they're not above using auto-tune, right? But you can usually tell if somebody is a bad singer and using auto-tune to cover that up. If he's using auto-tune, I can't tell. Very impressive. Complete QAnon nutcase. Really good singer.
There were bright lights before it all went too dark. And there white lies, they divided our heart.
What are they talking about? Bright light before it all went dark? White light divided our heart. What?
In the blink of an eye, we were all left with scars.
What are you talking about? Who was left with scars?
Listen to man-made decisions, should've trusted God.
You can take all our money, but you can't have our soul.
Who lost their money? Who had their money taken by, I don't know, who takes money? What's his name? George Soros? Is George Soros taking your money or something? Who had that happen? Please inform me. One example.
You could burn down our buildings and we'll still find a home.
We've lost it.
This woman right here, former Pussycat Doll from the band, the Pussycat Dolls. She's the only former band member to hit the Billboard charts for a single that she did, I think. I don't remember. Maybe she hit #1 on the Billboards. I don't remember what it was exactly. She's very famous. She was into acting, too, for a while. She's been in some very influential and famous movies and TV shows and stuff. And apparently she's a QAnonner, too. Everybody on this stage is a QAnonner. And like I said, we'll get into it in another segment, or if you just stick around to see the rest of this one, I'll talk about a couple of them.
We've lost it together, and we'll never surrender. We won't give up our freedom.
Okay, she is a bad singer. You can hear auto-tune trying to correct for the fact that she's completely off key. The other girl, though, was pretty good.
We won't give up.
You hear auto-tune, it's like a robotic underwater sound that you're listening to.
Our freedom.
From the shores of California all the way down to the Keys.
This is Forgiato Blow, another famous QAnon rapper. We're going to be talking about him today, too, a little bit.
Only he will bring us closer
Michael Flynn.
when we fall to our knees.
And he'll lift us from the ground so that everyone can see that we never lost our freedom. It's in his glory.
We never lost our freedom. It's in history? Is that what he said? Okay, let me tell you something about this song. It's performed within a certain kind of range, like a certain octave, right? It's not really, like, when you go outside of that range with, like, a single note, you've got to really mean it, and it's got to be good. There's got to be a reason for that. Big Nick went way up here for absolutely no reason. And auto-tune was struggling to keep up, dude. They probably burned through, like, 6 CPUs trying to auto-tune this guy's voice alone.
He'll lift us from the ground so that everyone can see.
You see, he went even higher with that, so that everyone, like, I can't even reach that octave. That's crazy. This dude's got some wicked vocal cords.
Lift us from the ground.
I mean, he doesn't know how to use those vocal cords, but he's got them, apparently.
He'll lift us from the ground so that everyone can see that we never lost our freedom. It's in his glory.
Like, I don't even know what that means.
You can take all our money, but you can't have our soul.
You can burn down our buildings and we'll still find a home.
Okay, she went with the classic intelligent decision to not vary her voice too much, so auto-tune didn't have to do much struggling or jumping around. I don't believe that... I'm sure they used auto-tune on that. It didn't sound natural at all. But at least she didn't do the Big Nick thing of going way up high inexplicably. This is Liz Crokin. She is a QAnonner also. We're going to be talking about her in the next video. And she is about as extreme as it gets. Just keep watching. We'll get there. Oh my God, some of the stuff she says is crazy.
We will all stick together and we'll never surrender.
We won't give up our freedom.
Okay, that one sounded like she had an interesting voice, but she doesn't know how to use it at all. That was very obviously auto-tuned to hell, right? This woman right here, she made an intelligent decision with auto-tune.
And we'll never surrender.
She did the huh thing, and when she goes, huh, she changes her pitch, right? So Auto-tune has a lot less of a hard time trying to keep up with the absolute garbage she's throwing at it, because she does the thing, picks a note, and stays there. Auto-tune can kind of adjust it to where it belongs. Fascinating. Okay, now this guy's apparently a comedian. This next singer, never heard of him before.
We are running from left to right.
Yet we find nothing on either side.
We'll live in a doubt until we all just figure out that only God gives it to us. God gives us freedom. The Lord, He gives us freedom. And we just love His freedom. No,
Yeah, right here, this guy. This is Grant Stinchfield on the left. He was a Newsmax host. You can only see like the bottom half of his face next to Big Nick here. And he's only in here for like half the song, weirdly. Never has a singing line. I don't even know why he's here.
we won't give up our freedom. God gives us freedom. The Lord, He gives us freedom.
It's like they feel like they're so persecuted. Like they believe that they're being attacked by somebody. Honestly, they're singing about like losing their freedom. Who did you lose your freedom to? Who took it? Where did it go? This makes absolutely no sense. And it's an embarrassment. It's like a terrible embarrassment. Like everybody on this stage is filthy rich and hasn't lost anything to anybody. I mean, look, even this dude right here, Michael Flynn, worked as a foreign agent against United States interests while in public office, undermined the authority of the U.S. president. He was somebody really high up in Obama's administration. Russia invaded Ukraine in 2014. Obama put sanctions on Russia. They don't say a word about it, and he's like, why didn't they say anything? That's unusual. Russia cries about everything. It turns out Michael Flynn told Russia, just stick it out. We're going to wait and see what happens. If Donald Trump wins this election, we're going to drop the sanctions. Lo and behold, Russia put time and effort and money into bot farms and propaganda networks, and Donald Trump wins the election and drops the sanctions. Now, I don't know what you call that legally, but I call that treason. The guy was charged for working as a foreign agent in the United States, convicted and sentenced, and pardoned by Donald Trump. Nobody on this stage is a victim. They are literally victimizers. They are people who have taken steps to hurt the United States intentionally. Okay, now they're going through the credits. Trump Latinos, is that a band? Billboard charting duo. And this is number 2 of Trump Latinos, Billboard charting duo, apparently. Marcus Rogers, he's a pastor. I've never heard of Marcus Rogers. You know what? I'm going to write some of these names down since I'm thinking about it. Let's see, hang on. Dude, I bet I can get so much crazy stuff off of this dude. We'll see. We'll see what he has to say. Then we've got Mises, Billboard charting rapper. Never heard of this one either. Jessica Sutta, she's the former Pussycat Doll. Angela Stanton King, reality show star, pro-life advocate. Never heard of her before. Forgiato Blow, that's who we're going to be talking about in a minute. Number 1 Billboard charting rapper. Yeah, he is a MAGA rapper. He only ever talks about MAGA. It's insane. Michael Flynn, 18th Director of Defense Intelligence Agency.